Emma. It was as though I was destined to be locked up for the rest of my life. After being locked up for 18 years back home, here I was again, locked up and even watched like a criminal, hidden even. I would never give up on my plans of escape. As long as my mate didn't want me, there was no point staying back here like a nobody. After all, he was the only person my heart is familiar with here. And somehow, I came to realize that the mate bond was the reason we are here. Ashley felt the pull and made us come all the way to a place we were never accepted. She was calling on her mate last night as I tried to sleep. Black. That was what she moaned till I slept off. It was early in the morning. I stood at the window watching people in black and white uniform down there, walking about, cleaning the floors, while some were trimming and watering the colorful, luscious flowers. Everyone was busy in the castle except me and Carla, who was deeply asleep on the couch behind me. If she wasn't my new personal maid, she would be among those busy people downstairs, I guess. She had no idea I left the room yesterday. She only came to meet a sheetless and quiltless bed, and I wasn't in the mood to explain anything to her. I came back to the room before she did, bringing me so many books I wasn't sure which to start from. She even noticed my different mood and tried to cheer me up and, of course, know what happened, but I still couldn't trust her, so I simply ignored her. My father, I wondered how he would be feeling now. Not knowing where I was or how I was faring would make him feel so heartbroken, and I don't even know. My heart squeezed at the thought. How would he even cope without me? My mother left us, and I did the same to him. I had to go see the Alpha, I decided. I knew his room already, and I'm done cowering like a spineless insect. I was going to tell him to let me look for something doing at the very least, or I won't stop trying to run away. Knowing my way around the castle was going to give me an advantage when I finally get the chance to escape. Of course I won't stop trying, even though he listens to me and get me something to do, which I doubt he would 100%, but I just need to try. I picked up the notepad and pen they gave to me and crept out of the room quietly so as not to wake up my watchdog. I observed the hallway, and to my relief, none of those stuck-up stewards were in sight, so I walked quickly to the last door in the hallway, about 100 meters from mine. At the door, I drew in a long breath before knocking. But nothing happened, so I knocked again, still nothing, and after 3 tries, I nudged the door open and it gave way easily. My heart skipped a beat. I had no idea the door was open. It's okay, I muttered to myself, knocking before entering is basic courtesy. There was no one in the room. As soon as I entered, my eyes went to the family-sized bed close to the wide slide window before scanning the rest of the room. Empty. But his blissful smell was everywhere in the room. I inhaled a lungful, knowing he was inside somewhere as I could feel his presence. I closed the door behind me, leaned on it, and waited. In less than a minute, he, in quote, sauntered out of probably the bathroom because he only had a white towel wrapped around his waist. And boy, he looked stunning with tiny drops of water dripping down his chest, his hair all wet covering his forehead. His high cheekbones looked less intimidating at this point, making the vulnerability of his sexiness beyond endearing. "Focus, Emma," I yelled at myself, snapping out of my drooling daze. It wasn't my fault, actually. It was Ashley's. She's an old whore. "What are you doing here?" His asked with a pissed voice, standing meters apart when all I wanted at this moment was to clung hard to him and never let go. But instead, I took out the jotter and started writing down what I was doing here. I tore out the part and handed it to him. It said, "I don't want to be locked up anymore. Let me find something doing, or I'll keep trying to run away. It's not like anyone would recognize me as your mate when they see me." He read it with a smirk on his face before squeezing the piece of paper irritably and tossing it away. "Where did you come from exactly, half-blood?" he asked, tossing off the towel to reveal a really tight boxer shorts. "Human realm," I wrote on the note and raised it for him to see. "Well, you should have stayed back there." He started putting on the same type of clothes I saw on him the second day I came here. "Sports clothes? How can you think I would ever allow you move about here? Are you insane? You can't even speak or socialize, and any wolf with stronger senses would notice you are not a full werewolf just from looking into your eyes." He stopped what he was doing totally and marched towards me in bare feet. "Listen to me, half-blood," he started with full resentment in his eyes. "You know what would have happened if I didn't get you out from that dungeon? I'll leave you to guess. Look, I've already taken a chosen mate, and she would be living in this castle starting from today. Don't mess things up by thinking of coming out. Stay where you belong." I stood upright, staring straight into his eyes, forcing myself to speak, trying to say something, anything, but instead of words, tears streamed down my eyes. I twirled around quickly as the tears came, not wanting him to see how much his words crushed me. "If you really want to be useful to me, stay in that room I put you in. Remember, you're now my mistress and submissive, and you do not have a choice," he said with a gentler tone from behind me. I had no idea what the hell he was saying, but I wasn't interested in hearing it, so I left his room, sobbing all the way to my prison. What the fuck does a submissive mistress mean anyway? I entered my room, banging the door noisily, not caring that I was going to wake my watchdog up. And she did, waking up with a startle and wiping the drool off her sleepy face. "Did you leave the room?" she asked in alarm, and then noticed my teary face as I ignored her and walked to the window. She got up and came to stand behind me. "Emma, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble if you leave this room, please," she muttered. "I'm a rankless wolf, so my kind are treated worse than others, and if we fail to do what we are told, we would be punished." "I just can't trust you, Carla," I wrote on the notepad, staring down at the flowers below. I didn't have the will to sign right now. "You came here because of what you stand to gain, and to watch me. Why should I care what happens to you while I do what I want?" I handed her the jotter and watched her face melt while she read my words. She clutched the pad and turned to look me in the eye. "That's not true, Emma," she muttered as if she was about to cry. "When I met you, I was glad that it was you. I don't know you, but I liked you. Yes, I'll gain a lot, but it doesn't change how people sees me based on my wolf rank here." "Then why are you meant to keep an eye on me?" I signed, tethering between anger and pity. "Wait." Her eyes shot up. "It was the idea of Stewardess Roth. She told me to keep an eye on you and watch every of your move. She told me that before we came inside. I think every wolf is curious as to why the alpha would keep a strange female in the 6th floor." We both fell silent. Something didn't feel right about the Roth woman. I mean, why would she look out for me so well and still ask Carla to watch my every move? The alpha's demands, maybe? And what exactly is so special about the 6th floor anyways? When she saw that I wasn't ready to say anything, she continued, "But I wish for us to be good friends. I don't have one, and I'm sure you don't either." "Don't you have a wolf?" I signed with an easier gesture to show I wasn't mad at her anymore. "No," she signed back with a sad smile. "Rankless wolves don't. We can't even shapeshift because our inner wolves are weaker. What about you?" "Yes, Ashley," I replied, and her face lit up in amazement. "How's she?" "I haven't seen her yet. I can only hear her, but she's troublesome, a handful, seriously." Carla laughed heartily. "I can hear you," Ashley grunted in my head. "So can we all be friends now? I promise I'll never tattle on you. You can trust me." She promised solemnly, and I found myself trusting her. Her eyes were void of conceit. It looked like the look in my father's eyes. I folded my arms around my chest and stared thoughtfully out of the window for a few more minutes before facing her. "So what do I stand to gain as your friend?" I signed with humor. "Well," she trailed, a mischievous twinkle in her eyes, "I'll take you round the castle and even the library without anyone knowing. What do you think about a masked ball?" Her phone chimed from the sofa, cutting her short, but I was already feeling a bit excited. Ashley was jumping around, beyond thrilled at the sound of a party. She grabbed her phone and her expression fell. "It's Madame Gosh, she's asking for me. I'll be right back," she waved and dashed out of the door. I wonder if I could trust her, but how much of a choice do I have? Alpha Zeke. Sorceress Gosh and Curtis walked into my office after I finished telling the stewardess what I would do to her and that rankless wolf if Emma ever came out of that room again. She did twice under their surveillance. At this point, she could really escape this castle without any of them lazy and dumb asses knowing. I knew she hated me. I knew she was hurt, But I want her, and I know she wants me too, just in a different way. And somehow, I could not get rid of the guilt I have been feeling since I saw the crushed look in her eyes this morning. I didn't only see it, I felt it. The sorceress and my beta both stood in front of my desk with their head bowed as I asked the stewardess to leave. "You may raise your heads," I commanded, and they both obeyed. I could feel both of them seething with anger from where they stood. "Your chosen mate is here, Alpha," Curtis started. I knew he was trying not to talk through clenched teeth as he usually did before I became the Alpha. We were best of friends then. Nothing changed, though, just status. "She has settled into her room, which is next to Trisha's room at the 5th floor, as you instructed," he continued. "Now the hybrid female can leave." Gosh's frail voice rang out almost immediately. "She is a danger to this realm, especially the part of being your mate. She is your weakness, and that is exactly what they are all looking for. We know a chosen mate would never be like your real mate, but uneasy lies the head that wears the crown, my lord." She wasn't angry or sad. She was concerned, and so was Curtis. I understood their concerns, but I wasn't sure I could take their counsel this time around. I got up to where she stood and placed my hand on her slumped shoulders. My mother asked her to look out for me before she died, and the sorceress has been everything, including a mother to me, since then. The wizard realm threw her out for her unsolicited counsel to their king, so my father took her in since then as part of our realm. She could read minds, foresee dangers, make healing herbs, create portal to anywhere in the world, and give wise counsels. My father allowed her do all of the above asides the mind-reading thing. Unless given written or spoken consent, she was never allowed to read anyone's mind in this realm, but most wolves loved her either way. "I understand your fears, sorceress," I said, squeezing her shoulders gently, "but I'll be fine. I got this under control, trust me." She sighed and shook her head. "How long do you plan to keep her here, then?" she asked, gazing questioningly into my eyes. At this point, she would know if I am telling a lie or not. "Soon," I smiled down at her, then turned to face Kurt. "Put Heather in charge of preparing the ball for our charity this year. Let's see how well she handles that, and of course, keep her busy," I instructed Curtis with a grin. The atmosphere was too gloomy. Nobody died for Chris Aches. But my grin couldn't fool Kurt. He simply nodded. The sorceress left the office, saying she had some errands to run, leaving Curtis and I in the room. "Let's lose some sweat tonight, Kurt," I say lightly, walking back to my desk. "I'll meet you at the sparring room by 7 tonight." He nodded without saying a word, bowed and left. He knew I only sparred when I had a lot on my mind, and today I had more than enough on my mind. I drowned myself into work till it was few minutes past 6. I left the office, went to take a bath and change clothes in my room, deciding I was going to have a late dinner after sparring. I walked past her room to the elevator on my way to the sparring room. It took great effort not to go inside and check on her, but I would not let her think I care. And her personal maid was in there. They might start trying to put the puzzles together if they saw me with her. Having her stay in my floor was enough. Kurt was already at the sparring room when I arrived. He's got to be the most punctual wolf I know. The sparring room was situated at the back wing of the castle, merged with the gym, so it was huge enough to contain a good number of training wolves. Most members of the Red Forest Pack came here to train, but the center closes by 6 p.m. with exception for the Alpha, of course. Without much ado, we took our wooden sword and started sparring. He was going too fast, persistently attacking without defending. That wasn't his style at all. "You're angry at me," I stated the obvious. "I told you I got this, Kurt. Chill." "What if she hurt you?" he panted, hitting my wooden sword away from my hand. He was being too sensitive, but I wasn't going to hold it against him. "I'm the Alpha, Kurt," I breathed, picking up my sword and positioning for another round. "Even if she can, she won't. I'm her mate, and she knows it. She's a mixed blood, Alpha, and we have no idea what she is capable of." He puffed, dropped his sword, and sat on the floor. "Well, the sorceress might have an idea." I dropped mine and sat down as well. "Does Trisha know what's going on?" He turned to be tiny beads of sweat dropping from his hair. He had a crush on Trisha since when they were teens, but was too afraid to tell her because he believed she was too unpredictable, and he wasn't sure I would approve of relationship between the both of them if at all she agreed. He knew how protective I was of my kid sister. No, she doesn't, and I intend to keep it that way, I said, knowing he understood I meant he shouldn't tell her about it. You know she hates it when you keep things from her, more so something as important as this. A subtle warning was etched in Kurt's voice. I knew that more than anyone else, but she would have to forgive me this time. That's on me, Kurt. You don't have to bother your green head about it, I joked, hoping to draw a laugh out of him. He chuckled, looking more at ease than he did when I came in. I stood up and gave him a hand in getting up, so we walked out of the sparring room together. You should go and see your chosen mate, he drawled. She kept asking me when she would be allowed to see the alpha. He continued with a tone of mockery. That you were literally boiling with fury when I agreed to take her as my chosen mate, Kurt. What changed? Let's say I was nursing the hope that your mate was out there somewhere, he replied. But after finally seeing who she was, I realized the devil you know is better than the angel you don't know. She may not look harmless, but she isn't. At least we know what Heather is capable of. We don't for the half-blood. I'll see her on my way up. Fuck, I cursed under my breath. Thanks for the heads up, and for the records. She is not yet my chosen mate. I rolled my eyes before the both of us parted ways. He lived at the 4th floor of the back wing with his own stewards. I believe we both felt better after the sparring, and somehow he understood me better now, I thought with relief, as I ambled towards the so-called chosen mate's room. Third-person point of view. Have you seen him yet? Alpha Argo spoke up as soon as Heather picked up the video call. I just arrived here, Father, Heather grunted impatiently. They already talked about all these before she left home in Green Forest Pack. How could he start pestering her when she only arrived a few hours ago? That was the thing with her father, Heather thought. He was too ambitious and extremely impatient with everyone around him. Heather, he leaned forward from his seat so his face was almost touching the screen of his phone. Heather almost laughed out loud. I didn't send you there to look pretty for that son of a bick. Daughter? I sent you there to be my eyes and ears in that castle, get into his head and tame him. Her personal maid, Dane, flinched. She brought her from her pack so her mission would be easier. Dane knew how much of a handful her father could be most of the time. He didn't bother to ask her how the place was, if she liked my room, and all that type of questions a regular father would ask their child. And of course she hated her new room. Not a single color, white and bland like a haunted house. Thank goodness she brought her stuffed toys with her. I know, Father, Heather replied calmly. You have told me already, and I know what to do. Have some faith in me. Heather wanted the alpha for herself, not in the way her father wanted. She had always been in awe of him, drooling for him since they were teens. His good looks was just too ethereal, like he was meticulously sculpted by the most skilled god of beauty. On top of all that, he was the smartest among all of them at the Wolverine Academy they all attended back then. Even his name made her heartbeat change pace. Zyke, ZYK, Zeke Hyde, Heather Hyde. She blushed impulsively at her imaginings. She would do anything and everything to make that come true, she vowed to herself silently. She would take him, make him hers alone, and then give her father what he wanted. Her father wanted the crown, of course, but he also knew it might not work, so he wants her to bear a son for the king, so the rulership can continue from out lineage. Sounded like things that happen in historical dramas. Heather, are you there? Her father's voice dragged her from her crazy reverie. Yes, Father. We don't have time, Heath, her father continued, because according to my informant at the castle, there's something going on at the 6th floor. The alpha might be keeping a female in his floor, but we have no idea what she is to him. You have to find that out, too. What floor did they put you? 5th floor, Heather frowned deeply. If that was right, that female, whoever she was, wasn't as desperate as her. She was ready to snap the neck of the whore who dared to come close to her alpha in a heartbeat. She was aware that the only flaw her longtime sweetheart had was promiscuity. He changed girlfriends like sneakers, but never for once gave her even a second glance. She idolized him all through high school, but he didn't even know her name. So, how would she toy with an opportunity of a lifetime to finally get him to look her way? "I've got it in control, Father," she finally spoke, but Father was glaring at her doubtfully. "I doubt that, Heather," he sneered. "If you had it in control, you wouldn't be placed on the 5th floor." "I just got here." Exasperation was getting the better part of her. "How much of a choice do you think I would have as to where I would be sleeping?" She slapped her face in frustration, sick of their banters already. She had more important things to take care of, like the yearly realm ball she had been put in charge of. Making it a success was a must for her, as a way to show she could be a supportive and good Luna Queen. Thankfully, she had learned all about event preparations as a skill for a Luna, because somehow her father had always had a plan like this since the day she was born. "Find a way to live in that 6th floor, Heather? Do you understand?" her father demanded authoritatively. There was a knock on the door. Heather sighed, grateful to whoever it was, because that intruder literally came to her rescue. "There's a knock on the door, Father. Let's talk later." "Bun," she chorused and ended the call. Her mind toyed with the idea that it could be the Alpha, so she ran to the dresser where she had already organized all her makeover kits to put on some more makeup. Her exasperating talk with her father must have wrinkled some part of the makeup. She brushed her hair feverishly one last time and whispered at her personal maid to shove the clothes into the closet fast. She drew in a long breath, straightened her already straight, shapely blue gown, flexed her mouth and smacked her lips together to make sure the lipstick spread perfectly. What if the person knocking wasn't the Alpha anyway? She wondered, rolling her eyes at herself. But it didn't matter, she decided. At least the person would see how dazzling and well-ordered their future Luna Queen was. The knock came again. "Open the door, Dane." Heather whispered to her personal maid, who left what she was doing, and rushed to open the door, while she sat on the couch with a random book, opened and placed on her laps as if she was really engrossed in the story. Dane bowed instantly as she saw who the knocker was, opening the door wider for him to come in. "Your Grace," she said in reverence, and went out of the room to her bunk at the steward's quarters. Her lady would send for her if she needed anything. Alpha Zyke was greeted with a nauseating female perfume as he sauntered into the room. His so-called future chosen mate was staying now. This was the first time he would be speaking to her, even though they all literally grew up together. Fact is, he never liked her, but he reckoned she would be more useful to him than his mute mate. The maid who opened the door went out as soon as he walked in. Heather was sitting on the single couch close to her bed, obviously absorbed in the book sitting open on her laps. She raised her head up as soon as she saw him, a wide smile appearing on her face from nowhere. "My lord." She got up abruptly, not minding that the book she was reading fell on the floor. She bowed, stretching her palms to Zeke in a courteous and ladylike manner. "It is an honor." He pecked the back of her hand lightly, wishing she would drop all the formalities. After all, this was the 21st century, and they might both be sharing the same bed soon. She looked prim and proper, standing about 10 feet tall, even without the fake height under her soles. Everything looked fake anyway. Even her golden blonde hair looked too perfect and unreal. Her flawless features and excessively red lips. Black snorted and looked away. She wasn't the tiny, fragile-looking female with an unruly dark hair and soft, pale pink lips. "How do you like your room, Heather?" He started casually after she dropped her hand to her side. "Perfect, my lord," she uttered with her head still slightly bowed. She stole occasional glances at him whenever he looked away. He could hear her heart beating faster than usual. He knew the effect he had on females, so it wasn't new. "You sure?" he asked with a raised eyebrow. "It's looking kind of bland to me." He looked around the room with blindingly white walls. Females loved more colors as far as he knew. But overall, the room was comfy. The large bed, huge closet, beautifully carved dresser with attached mirror. Emma didn't have one in her room, he noted subconsciously. "It is great, my lord. I love it," she replied robotically. "Whatever, then, Emma." Carla came back with breakfast and a long, sad face. I was on the sofa, reading one of the new James Hadley Chase she brought to me yesterday. She came and sat beside me while I dropped the book to ask her what was wrong. Emma, I'm not sure our little mission would be possible anymore, though. The stewardess yelled at me for not keeping an eye on you properly, she muttered. I just stared at her in alarm. That was my chance of running away, vanishing into the thin air. Are you related to the Alpha or a distant secret relative who was born in another realm? She asked perceptively, all of a sudden staring at me straight in the eye. No one is allowed to stay in the 6th floor. That was why I was really excited when I was told I would be coming here. Even the Alpha's sister don't stay in the 6th floor, and they make it look like it's an abomination for you to come out of this room. I looked away, wishing I could really tell her how bad my situation was at that moment. I know it's not in my place to be curious, but it's impossible not to be, she continued, looking down at her laps. I just want you to know that if you leave this room and they find out, I'll be in a whole world of trouble. I'm in bigger trouble myself, I thought. Not to sound like an inconsiderate person, but Carla can always be forgiven if I escape. However, staying here wouldn't make my mate want me eventually, and my father needed me. I'll tell you when the time is right, Carla, I signed, trying to cheer her up. But I really want to hear about the ball you were talking about before Madame Roth called you. Oh, she said a little more brightly, it's our realm's full moon ritual. The grandfather of the present Alpha made the gathering more like a party or ball so people would mingle more comfortably. Werewolves from all 12 packs in the realm gather together every year, and most young adult wolves are able to find their mates there. Wow, that sounds really huge, I thought. So everyone can attend the ball, right? I signed, not minding that my food was getting cold. Not really, Emma, she said with a sad smile. Until the present Alpha, rankless wolves were not allowed to attend because most of us are busy doing one menial job or the other. But Alpha Zyke changed all that, though. He announced that all wolves are allowed to attend, including stewards and maids, ranked wolves or rankless ones. Her words about the kind deed of my mate melted a part of my heart. He wasn't all bad after all, but only to me. But why are rankless wolves treated with such contempt here anyway? It's not like they had a choice to be born the way they were, so why treat them like lesser than regular wolves? I mean, their lives are already hard enough being unable to connect with their wolves and all. I signed with an irritated gesture. Sadly, most of us have gotten used to it, she chuckled in a dry manner that didn't reach her eyes. And that's why we adore the Alpha, while other Alphas and many ranked wolves all over the realm hate and detest him. I couldn't help but chuckle. I detested him as well, but it was for a totally different reason. But I'm curious anyway. You're Alpha, I signed. How is he like? Well, she corked her head thoughtfully. He's aloof, and like the proudest wolf in the whole realm. Well, it's a given, though. He's young, he's drop-dead gorgeous, he's rich, and he's the king of all Alphas. But I feel amidst all the aloofness, he is kind and really considerate. He's just being the way he is mostly because he haven't found his mate yet after so long of waiting. I feel bad for him. I laughed out loud in my head, wondering how Carla would react if she ever finds out that I was the so-called mate their darling Alpha was searching for. They might never know because he would never come out to his realm that he had finally found his mate. Anyway, she continued, balancing her own food tray on her lap, we hope this new chosen mate thing the Alphas suggested to him makes him happy, even though I don't like the she-wolf they chose for him. I was about to start eating my own food, but her words made me lose my appetite completely. I wasn't curious. I didn't want to hear about him taking another female when I was here. I don't want to feel this way, but jealousy made my blood boil. And Carla looked like she was going to continue talking about that crap. I dropped back the tray of food, determined to change the topic before I lose it completely. So how do we get to the ball, Carla? I signed, feigning excitement. We are not just going to sit back while everyone have fun out there, right? You know we can't, Emma, she said after chewing the chunk in her mouth. For one, I'm not yet 18, so what's the point? Also, they are keeping a really close watch on you, closer one now that you left this room twice. I would not let all that reasons deter me, I thought. I must learn the blueprint of this castle. We can use disguise, I suggested. You said it's a masked ball, right? Yes. She suddenly cheered up and started chewing faster. That's a great idea, Emma. The mask doesn't help in disguising much, but we would be using new costumes and attend the ball like totally different people. She shrieked, her green eyes glistering with excitement. Hold up, Carla. I stared at her suspiciously. Why do you look this excited? Is there something I don't know about? Well, I haven't met my mate, but I was hoping to meet my crush there. No way, I giggled. I have never had a crush before and have always wondered how it felt. Especially when you are also your crush's crush. Hoo hoo hoo. I signed with urgency. I would have been shrieking too if I could speak. Mint. She said the name with burning red cheeks and uncontrollable smile. He's the Gamma, and I know I shouldn't be having such high expectations, but I can't help it. He's like the firmament with an arousing bad boy vibes. Though all the other females at the first floor likes to argue that the Alpha is more gorgeous, but to me, Mint is the only man in the world. It sounded as though I had turned on a talking machine, but she looked so excited when talking about the Mint guy. But what about the guy with the green hair? I asked, wondering who he was following the Alpha about. He's the Beta, she started a bit calmer. He is Mr. Goody Shoes, kind, innocent, humble, and smart. He doesn't have the bad boy vibe like the Alpha and Gamma. I've never seen the Mint guy before, though. I signed even though I've only been out of this room the day I came in, and the other days I sneaked out. Oh, he's not around. He went for a free medical community outreach at Blue Forest Pack, but would be back before the ball. He's a doctor. I planned to approach him that day, but the mere thought of talking to Mint makes me feel like I'm going to lose my fucking mind. I think I'll pass out that day. She beamed so much I was scared her cheeks would fall off. I let out a soundless laugh. Carla was so funny, and I'm sure the Mint guy would be more than entertained. I hope more that he can look beyond her rank and see how much of a simple-minded and straight female she is. However, for all those to be possible, we have to make sure our sneaking out is perfect, or else she would be in lots of trouble. So how do we get the costume we would be needing, I asked, as the only voice of reason we both have. Also, how do we sneak out perfectly and quietly without getting caught? I really don't want to put you in a tight spot. Oh, don't worry about that, Emma. She paused and drank water from one of the bottles she brought. I'm not called the mistress of mischief for nothing. The only problem is we would have to get there later than others, and it's one of the many benefits of being my friend. She grinned mischievously. I grinned back at her, suddenly realizing I had finally found a friend. Although we have completely different personalities and she knows so little about me, but to me, she's my friend. The first real friend I've ever had in my life, and the first person excited to be my friend. One more thing, she rubbed her jaw, staring at me intently. Before I pick out your costume, I need to know one thing. Is there anyone you hope to impress at the ball? I sat quietly for some seconds, totally lost on how to answer that question, honestly. I initially wanted to go to the ball so I could know the routes of the castle when I finally complete my escape plan. However, my mate and his new chosen mate would be there, and I'm not sure if I want to see them together like that. I shook my head to indicate a no, and Carla's pretty face fell. I wonder if she would be this way with me when she discovers I have the blood of her realm's biggest enemy flowing through my veins. Well, she tried to cheer me up. We would have to make you look prettier nevertheless. The night of the ball. Alpha Zyke. The hall glowed with silver lights from the golden chandeliers draping from the high ceiling around the room. Recognizable faces, even though they were putting on masks, of alphas, lunas, betas, and gammas from different packs filled the hall, as well as other members of the Red Forest Pack. They were all dressed sophisticatedly like the dignitaries they were, not minding how intimidating it was to the rankless wolves who were brave enough to come. Alpha Zyke wondered sometimes if his decision for the rankless wolves to attend the full moon ball was the right thing, because most of them were nowhere in sight. The ball looked well-planned and organized asides that. Heather did a good job, he must confess, he thought, as he strode into the hall with her arms linked in his. She was beaming excessively in an animated manner, with layers and layers of makeup on her face, giving her a doll-like look with a red mask that matched the color of her dress. Not to talk about the dress she was putting on, a fitted bodice, which flared at the waist with a floor-touching skirt. The material was all over the place on the floor, and one wrong step, she'll be smashing the front of her head on the hard tiles. It wasn't like they were having a wedding tonight. He came minutes later than everyone else, so the party was already in full swing, and people were already mingling, exchanging pleasantries, and having probably their third glass of champagne. I enjoyed this particular ball a lot, especially before becoming the alpha, but somehow tonight felt empty and mundane, as if something was missing. Of course it was. I haven't set my eyes on Emma, my half-bold mate, for a whole week, even though we lived in the same floor. She was doing a good job of staying away like I wanted, but why do I feel so dissatisfied? It took all the will in me not to go into her room and crush her fragile frame into mine. I was craving her so badly, I haven't been able to touch any other female since she came. And even Heather came to warm my bed countless times, but I turned her away at the door. Deep down, I was scared I might hurt Emma if I touch anyone else. She looked so frail and welcoming guest of honor to officially launch us into the annual full moon gathering. Mint, the Gamma spoke into the microphone from the stage. With a standing ovation, let us welcome Alpha Zeke Hyde with his soon-to-be Luna Queen, Heather Strove. Let's stop thinking about her, Black. Mint was back. There was no better way to announce his arrival than this. He wanted to make me laugh, but I kept a straight face, striding to the podium to address the people of the realm. Everyone stood up and bowed their head as I walked past. I detached my hand from Heather's and went to give Mint a big hug before beginning my speech. I was about to start my speech when my nose caught the whiff of a familiar smell, a smell I have missed and longed for. My eyes instinctively darted around the hall, searching for the dark hair with purple beads, even though I was aware that it was simply impossible for her to be here. Great, it had gotten to the point of me hallucinating about her. Get a grip, Zyke, I chided myself. Everyone was still standing with their drinks in hand, waiting for me to finish my speech and make a toast. They had no idea the amount of turmoil going through my head. Alpha? Curtis called my attention in our mind link, bringing my mind back to the job at hand. Is everything all right? I nodded without looking at his direction, cleared my throat and began addressing the crowd, skimming through words so I could get it over and done with. I finished faster than normal and signaled the orchestra to start playing. Males and females paired themselves in twos and began waltzing to the slow melody of the music. As I stepped down from the podium to go search for the familiar smell that was driving me nuts, Heather sauntered in front of me, blocking my way with her animated smile. May I have the first dance? She courtesy, stretching her open palms to him. If my lord pleases. I stared at her with ripe disgust. She was trying too hard. Later, Heather, I said casually as I walked past her into the crowd of dancing couples to search for the one my heart was calling for. I strode through the throng of people who stopped and bowed as soon as I walked past them. The smell was getting stronger as I was nearing the exit of the hall, but I couldn't find any female with a dark, short hair. Everyone here was wearing a mask, but I would recognize people I knew in a heartbeat, especially her. Mine! Black howled with burning desire, jumping all over the wall of my head. She is close, I thought, still looking around when my eyes caught a petite, red-haired female in a pale blue dress standing in the midst of the crowd. We were standing few meters apart from each other, but our eyes locked, and her china blue eyes, which shone brighter with the black mask, drew and held me in. She didn't bow to me instinctively like everyone else. She simply stood and stared stoically, looking stunning in the light blue dress that stopped below her knees, matching with the color of her eyes. Her skin looked as pale as her dress. There was just something endearing about her. It wasn't really her looks, it came from within, like a diamond in the rough. I could feel the strong pull towards her, but this wasn't right. The half-blood wasn't red-haired. She never had a lipstick on. She would never be able to come out of her room with the number of people I put to watch her, and she never had the nerve to look me this straight in the eye without cowering. But the stranger's eyes were as blue as hers, and she smelled of lemon and red velvet like her. What were the odds of this stranger being Emma? If she wasn't my mate, then why was I feeling such an irresistible pull towards her? I decided to find out. I would never get answers by continually asking myself the same questions over again, so I took a step towards her, but a younger male from the crowd walked up to her first, bowed slightly, asking for a dance. Black growled possessively in my head. She smiled at him and every nerve in my body froze. I realized that if that was the half-blood in any way, then this would be the first time I would be seeing her smile, and it was exquisite, and it made my blood boil with jealousy. She had never smiled at me, but here she was smiling at a stranger. The tall male stood closer and stretched out his hand to her while she glanced at me one last time before placing her hand on his, and he dared to wrap his hands around her waist? Their bodies were even touching. I clenched and unclenched my fist in rage, feeling my chest rumble noisily. I gazed at her possessively as another male danced around with her, smiling down at her. I was losing control to Black. He couldn't hold it in anymore. Neither could I, but if I went close to them with this anger, I could hurt that male. I drew in a long breath and marched towards them, dragging her hand from his and walking out of the hall with my hand firmly wrapped around her arm, ignoring the shocked stares I was getting from everyone. I couldn't care less. They had no idea what was going on in my head. Few hours before the ball. Emma. Carla and I had concluded our plans of attending the ball before time. She was full of mischief and more meticulous than I expected. She literally stole all the costumes, wigs, and makeup we used to change our looks. She even knew how to style someone to perfection. I couldn't recognize myself after she was done with me. We had to change our hair color, so I picked a red hair. I had always imagined how it would look on me. My mother was red-headed. It was part of the very few things I could remember from her features now. Her face faded away slowly from my mind as the years went by, even though my father sometimes said I was an exact copy of her, aside the color of my hair. I took that one from him. Sadness washed over me at the thought of my parents and how tragic their love was. I would never ever want to go through what my dad went through. I don't think I would ever be capable of dealing with such intensity of pain. I felt bad through the week as I couldn't see my mate. He never bothered to come check on me even for once. The feeling worsened the day I heard a knock on the door, and when Carla opened it, it was the flawless face of a golden blonde-haired female. She was all beams and smiles, saying she was looking for the steward, but I hid beside the door so she wouldn't see me, and Carla was smart enough to not let her in. She even asked Carla if there was someone else in the room, but Carla lied for my sake. And after she left, Carla told me she was the Alpha's new chosen mate, but she felt the Alpha deserved better. But she's pretty and elegant, I signed, confused. I know, but she would never be like his real mate. She scoffed. Besides, true beauty isn't usually on the surface. Some people can have perfect physical features, but within, they're rotten like the worms in a beautiful apple. She had no idea how, but it cheered me up. That was one of the things I loved about Carla. She had a way of making me feel better, even though she was completely unaware of why I was sad, or if I was even sad at all. I was extremely good at masking my feelings. Not Carla, though. She's as transparent as crystal. You could see through every of her emotions, and I honestly wish I could be that way. I had to learn to hide my feelings from a young age, so as not to make my father worry. And now I couldn't bring myself to imagine how worried he would be. The color of my eyes changed to red all of a sudden, bringing my mind back to the present. I closed my eyes quickly, then opened it again, and thankfully the color was gone. It was blue again. To my relief, Carla didn't notice as she was putting a finishing touch on her makeup, with her back turned facing the other side of the room. We finished sooner than we anticipated, and that was because our clothes were ready and waiting before today. I wonder how Carla pulled it off, but the dresses she brought for us were simply splendid. Mine was a pale blue dress that is fitted through the bodice and hips and gradually flares. I didn't really have an hourglass or pear-shaped body, but it looked good on me, even though this was the first time I was putting on a real dress to attend a real party. It was something that had always happened in my head and never in reality. It's finally time to put the sneaking out plans in action, Carla said suddenly, and I realized I didn't know when she stood in front of me. Life of an overthinker. I stared at Carla, bamboozled by how different she looked after the dressing up. She looked like a real lady, beautiful, elegant, and dazzling. Her pretty smile added to the charm. She wore a shiny black, Align-fitted dress that stopped at her toes, with red heels an inch lower than the one I was putting on. Her main disguise was the blonde hair. She looked so different with the hair, makeup, and elegant dress, I was 100% sure that none of the people she worked with before would recognize her. "You look so gorgeous, Carla," I beamed at her. "Go get mint." She giggled and patted my hair playfully. "I never knew red hair and simple makeup would look so good on you, Emma. We're so gonna have fun tonight." We both raised our hand and gave each other an excited high five. "How do we leave without being seen?" I asked. "I have it all planned out," she replied, and then gave me a rundown of her plans. It sounded credible and smart. According to her, there is a stairway beside the elevator that people use when the elevator is faulty, but she can't remember the last time the elevator has ever been faulty, so no one would be using the stairway, especially today when most stewards would be attending the ball. We would be using the mask when we come out in the open, so no one would really be able to tell who we are. "What if the stewardess comes to look for us?" I asked, because she always came every night after dinner to check if I was inside. I was worried Carla would be in trouble if the stewardess discovers we are out, but Carla, the mistress of mischief, already had a plan. Since the party starts by 7 p.m., we would turn off the light in the room and leave the floor by 10 minutes past 7. Carla brought some more pillows from the first floor, so we arranged it on the bed and covered it with the quilts to look like we were sleeping. The nosy stewardess wouldn't want to turn on the light, because to her, we are sleeping, so after opening the door and seeing the swollen bed, she wouldn't even have a single trace of doubt. Brilliant, I thought, laughing inside my head. Ashley was getting hyped. I could see her now in my head, but I still wasn't sure if I could really shapeshift. Carla said the alpha and some other werewolves shapeshift by midnight to commemorate the end of a lunacycle. She said most she-wolves, especially the high-ranked ones, hate to shapeshift so as not to ruin their meticulously made manicures. How petty. Our sneaking out plan worked perfectly, as not even a soul was in the stairway, and all we hoped for was for our trick on the stewardess to work. Left for me, I couldn't care less. But I would never want to see Carla in trouble. I would escape this prison, just not today. I felt like a real female for the first time in my life. I looked like one, and tonight I was going to act like one. I almost gasped at the sight before me as Carla and I sauntered hand in hand into the ballroom, or better still, ostentatious hall. Lights filled the hall, from expensive-looking chandeliers to the lights coming out from the walls. Everyone inside the hall looked like dignitaries with the way they were dressed, and even their mannerisms screamed class. Females looked stunning in their superb dresses, while the males were looking hot in tuxedos. But we blended in easily to my surprise. We dressed even better than some of them. I blended in physically, but couldn't help still feeling like an outsider. Carla didn't act surprised or nervous at all, even though this was also her first time attending the ball. She had been practicing how to walk, talk, and say hi to people for the whole week. It had kept me entertained, somehow forgetting my own predicament for some time. She held her head high, her purple mask shiny like her dress and her red lips. She called her makeover style smoky, and it made her look like a queen. She wasn't cowering like the other rankless wolves we met on our way here. No one would recognize us, hopefully not even my mate. As soon as we walked into the ball, my eyes instinctively started darting around looking for him. I wanted to ask Carla, but knew she would start suspecting something, so I simply shut my mouth. Also, I didn't want anyone to know I sign. Someone here might know I was the one just by doing that. After all, the alpha wasn't the only one who knew I was mute and could sign. So Carla and I agreed she would do most of the talking. The party had started already before we came in, so we were handed 2 glasses of white liquid, which Carla called champagne. She sipped hers elegantly and told me to be careful, that the drink could make me intoxicated easily, so I simply held the glass on my hand like a duty. I had to be clear-headed tonight. We took our seats on one of the lines close to the exit as I noticed Carla's head turning here and there, and I knew instantly who she was searching for. We both sat quietly, not bothering to mingle and say hi to others like what the rest in the hall were doing. I wondered when the alpha would get here, or if he was here already, but I couldn't see him because of the crowd. But I couldn't care less. I wasn't looking for him. I tried convincing myself, causing Ashley to scowl at me. However, about 20 minutes after we came in, the crowd turned their attention at once to the door, spiking my curiosity. I turned to see what arrested everyone's attention, only to see my mate, the alpha, at the entrance with the golden blonde-haired hand linked with his like a new couple. The crowd seemed awed by them as they all stood up to give their alpha a standing ovation. Someone spoke up from the stage of the hall, welcoming the alpha and his soon-to-be Luna Queen. My heart sank. I clutched the material of my cloth with a death grip. Tears threatened to fall off my eyes, so I blinked rapidly to push them back. Carla didn't notice to my relief. She was gazing sheepishly at the person on the stage, while my eyes was fixated on my mate, with the drop-dead gorgeous female, according to Carla. The female beaming proudly in her flawless face and red gown, which flowed freely to the ground. If I didn't know better, I'll say they were walking to the aisle to make their vows. It seemed likely, I thought bitterly, as a lump formed in my throat. They looked perfect together. He, the Alpha King, while she looked like she was born to be a queen. As the crowd cheered and clapped, I wondered what exactly I was doing here, why he would keep me here when he had someone else already, someone perfect for him. Beautiful, elegant, graceful, and a complete she-wolf. And of course she could talk. Not a half-breed mute like I was. That was why he could show her off to the world this way, even though she wasn't his real mate. I remained glued on my seat and stopped looking at them, sobbing in my head with Ashley, who continued howling mournfully, "Emma." After the Alpha's speech, an orchestra started playing. Everyone around us paired themselves up and began a slow dance on the dance floor, while I continued staying glued to my seat, regretting my decision to come here. Maybe I don't need to be clear-headed anymore, I thought. The glass containing the white liquid was on the table beside me, so I picked it up, and without thinking twice, I downed all the content into my mouth. Arrgh! It tasted strangely bitter, but not as bitter as my life right now. I gulped down the liquid into my throat, and a warm feeling spread across my insides. I wanted another shot. "What are you doing, Emma?" Carla's voice was louder than usual, probably because of the blaring music. She dragged the cup off my grip. "Too late, my friend," I thought, sneering. "Is something wrong, Emma?" she asked, looking down at me with a concerned face. I shook my head enthusiastically with a wide smile. Her face adjusted after that as she smiled back. I was glad she didn't notice the torment I was going through. "Great, then," she said, and then dragged me up. "Since you're feeling so good, why don't you go and dance?" I shook my head in alarm. I don't even know how to dance, but Carla was obviously not taking no for an answer. "Off you go," she tried, shoving me to the dance floor, but I clung to her hand like my life depended on it. She frowned and dropped my hand. "Whatever you're going through, Emma, just remember that you came here to have fun. Let go of all your thoughts and enjoy this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And talking about once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Mint doesn't have a dance partner right now. I better go take the spot." I nodded with a forced smile and shoved her to the way she had been glancing at since, the guy on the stage who welcomed the Alpha and the future Luna Queen. I snorted at the memory. But Carla was right. The Mint guy was good-looking. He had a dark hair with shades of gray strands mixing perfectly. He was tall with a rugged kind of handsomeness. I was sure he would look better in a simple jean and polo instead of the white tux he had on. That was the same guy Carla was going to ask for a dance? She was indeed fearless. I don't know many rankless wolves, but I was cocksure she was more daring than all of them put together. More daring than even a ranked wolf. "Go, girl," I said in my mind, and then patted her on her shoulder encouragingly. Mute people are great with gestures. You wouldn't even need their words at some point. Carla nodded, drew in a long breath, and without a single trace of doubt in her eyes, she sauntered majestically to the direction the mint guy was. "Fighting, Carla," I said behind her. I was left alone once again, standing in the midst of already paired dancing couples. However, I felt less heartbroken or scared. The drink I took a few minutes ago was doing something to my inside. Our mate, Ashley, shrieked as we caught his strong smell. It only meant he was close by. I twirled around to see him standing few meters from me. It was definitely him. His endearing masculine smell that my nostrils were so familiar with, his jet-black hair intricately sleeked back with few strands cascading generously down his smooth tanned forehead, and his deep violet eyes darker behind the dim red mask. It was really my mate, but did he recognize me the way I recognized him instantly? I wondered as my heart thumped loudly in my chest. He stood like he was glued to the spot, staring at me in a longing but confused manner. What was he doing down here anyway? The last time I remembered seeing him was on the stage with his future Luna Queen. Why was he here staring at me? There was only one answer to that. The bond, the pull drew him here. And we both stood gazing at each other like it was just us in the room now. Does that mean I have been caught? My cheeks were heating up, and he wouldn't stop gazing deep into me, so deep I was scared he could hear my thoughts. While I was contemplating on how to run away, a young brown-haired male dressed in blue suit came and stood in front of me. He bowed slightly in an awkward courtesy, asking for a dance with his hands stretched out. I hesitated, knowing my mate was watching, but the male stood hopefully before me, so I was like, fuck it, and sent my mate a last glance before resting my hands on the brown-haired male's hand. My own mate came in here with his arms linked in the arm of another female. Who cares who I dance with anyway? I finally focused on the young male in front of me, following his steps slowly. Dancing wasn't even as hard as people made it look anyway. My dance partner wrapped his hand around my waist and drew me closer to him, causing me to stiffen momentarily, but he didn't notice and just went on waltzing. I hoped my mate had already gone back to his future Luna. I wasn't the Emma he could lock up and abandon tonight. I was a young and carefree female who was having the fun of her life. But before I knew it, a strong hand drew my arm away from the young male, and as I looked up, it was my mate. His eyes was blazing in fury with his jaw clenched tightly. He looked like he wanted to do something worse to the young male, who stood shocked to the bone with his head bowed completely. The alpha wrapped his palm around mine and dragged me out of the place, ignoring the stunned stares from everyone around us. I was still trying to process what was going on. Did he know I was the one? Why couldn't he just look away and go to his future queen? My mind was overworking as we walked out of the exit with his hand still firmly holding onto mine, but I must confess, it felt so bloody nice. The mate bond was obviously too hard to ignore. Third-person point of view. Heather Strove watches with pure contempt as her chosen mate's eyes stayed glued to a tiny red-haired female who wasn't even close to her beauty-wise. He turned down her request for a dance because of that female? She burned with resentment, seething from where she stood, but there was nothing she could think of doing at this moment to drag him away from her. Her father, Alpha Argo, glared at her from the other side of the hall. "Go get your man, Heather." He mind-linked her, but before she could make any move, she saw the Alpha drag the red hair out of the hall towards the exit. She froze, stupefied by what just happened, and clearly wasn't the only surprised person in the hall, but the Alpha ignored the gasps and glowers coming from the members of his pack. Heather furiously stumped out from the hall through the other exit at the back of the stage. "The Alpha is mine," she chorused repeatedly as the cool night breeze pierced through her exposed skin. Carla felt giddy with excitement as Mint accepted her request for a dance. She hoped fervently that she wouldn't slouch and ruin this moment, something she had been practicing for since the whole week before. She placed her hand on his shoulder while he held onto her waist tentatively. They both began to waltz slowly, completely unaware of everything going on around them. Mint smelled of the minty flower that grew in the garden of thorns, the easy smile on his face causing butterflies to flap around her stomach. He hadn't said a word since they started dancing, but she hoped to hear his beautiful voice, even though the thought of him speaking to her made her nervous as hell. He gazed into her eyes, the grayness of his eyes undoing every fiber of her nerve. She wanted to tell him she liked him. She wanted him to do to her all the things he could do to a female he loved. But he was just seeing her for the first time, and Carla was sure he couldn't care less about her after tonight. Because after tonight, she would go back to being a dirty, brown-haired, rankless she-wolf and not a high-born female with blonde hair. He might find his mate soon, and she would never even be a passing thought in his head. Then Carla decided she was going to tell him how she felt once and for all. Accept the rejection and move on, she said to herself. One more thing, though, she needed to be a bit more tipsy to let her thoughts out. Thankfully, one of the ushers carrying a tray of drinks was passing by, so Carla stopped dancing and took 2 glasses. She handed one over to her partner, Mint, who declined, saying he doesn't drink alcohol. With a mixture of surprise, nervousness, and numbness of hearing his voice, Carla downed the whole content in both glasses in a matter of seconds. Mint stood back laughing down at her and asked to her surprise, "Do you want to get some fresh air?" His gray eyes glistered in the lights. Of course she wants to get fresh air as long as it was with him, Carla thought, though, nodding enthusiastically. He took her hand in his and strode towards the stage to the other exit. Carla felt like she was going to pass out from the thrill of Mint walking beside her, and soon they would be alone together. It was like a dream come true. The alcohol was already making her tipsy. Now she can spill her gut to him if possible. The goal now was to confess to Mint, kiss him, and forget about him after tonight. She knew she would never be able to get his attention ever again after tonight. But she was going to make him hers for the whole of tonight. And that should be more than enough. Alpha Zyke. I knew my fury was unjustifiable. But I couldn't stop seething. How dare another male come close to my mate? Black was throwing a tantrum in my head. How would he not? A male from nowhere was wrapping his hand around the waist of his mate. I thought in rage, with my hand still wrapped around hers, till we got to one of the gardens behind the castle. "Don't ever let any male lay his hand on you," I growled into her face. "You are mine. You belong to me, half-blood." I dropped her hand and stood towering over her. She raised her head to face me, a smug, comical look on her face, and all the anger in me dissolved. It was her. It was really her. The bright blue eyes were unmistakable. Her arousing smell was something I couldn't forget in a hurry. Every part of her features were glued to my mind. Her pink lips seemed bolder than normal. I longed to kiss out every single drop of lipstick on it. I have no idea how she pulled this off, but did she really think I wouldn't recognize her with the red hair and makeup? "It's you, right?" I asked rhetorically, knowing she couldn't talk. She nodded and sniggered, still looking up at me. Then I realized she was actually drunk. For Pete's sake, who let her drink? I wondered before it dawned on me that no one even knew who she was here. How did she even know about the party and who dressed and made her up this way? I knew that even if she could speak, there wouldn't be a point asking her, because she would never tell. However, I highly suspect her personal maid, that daring, rankless wolf. She suddenly glared at me as if thinking better of it, then tried to walk out on me. But I placed my hand on her shoulder and drew her back to face me. "Don't walk out on me like that," I said with gritted teeth, but she continued glaring straight into my eyes. Right now, I really wanted to know what exactly was going on in her head. I don't even understand her sign language, neither was I ready to make her think I care about learning it. However, the best way to hear her thoughts was mating and marking her, and I don't think I would be ready for that anytime soon. I didn't know if she was mad or sad. All I could see was her blue eyes getting darker. No one had ever stood up to me this way before. It amused and aroused me at the same time. She could go ahead and hate me. It wouldn't stop me from wanting her. I ignored the guilt that gnawed at me, drawing her close. I sucked in a lungful of her mesmerizing smell that made my head swoon with need. I wrapped my hand around her tiny waist. Her silent and almost non-existent moan held me in, intensifying my desire to explore every single inch of her mouth and body. I wanted to have her this instant, claim her, mark her, and make her mine forever. Damn all the consequences. Nothing have ever felt so spellbinding. Never have I craved another being with such need and passion. She suckled my lower lip with an identical need, a desire that cannot be faked. My hands traveled around her body, then I bundled her both hands with my left hand, pinning it behind her. Without intentionally parting the kiss, I started kissing her face, working my tongue down the crook of her neck. I could feel her will slipping. I could see her submitting to me, rasping, fighting for breath, causing me to instinctively tighten my grasp on her both hand. Her head fell backwards, giving me access to feast on the delicate skin of her neck. The skin at the crook of her neck was smooth and soft as I ravished my tongue around it. She hated me. I wanted her gone, but we both couldn't fight against what brought us together. "Alpha, where are you?" Curtis's voice sounded in my head. "The shifting ritual will begin soon, Your Grace. Your presence is needed here." I stopped kissing her, let go of the hands I pinned back, and stepped back from her after receiving Kurt's message. I stared down at her, amused as she flushed with embarrassment. "Don't go anywhere," I said, my voice still raspy. "I'll be back," and then turned, but she held me back and fished out the diary given to her and feverishly wrote on it before handing the piece of paper to me. It says, "Please don't tell on Carla. I don't want her to get into trouble. I'm the one to blame. I'll do whatever you want." I chuckled quietly, resting my arms on her shoulders. "You'll always do what I want, mate," I said, feeling her body tense up to my hold. "You have no choice whatsoever," and went back to the party, hoping my member would relax before I get there. Emma. We stood under the full moon. Around us were a collection of colorful flowers and short trees. There was no one here. He must have known before dragging me out here. After all, his aim was to hide me for as much as possible. After promising myself countless times to fight him off whenever he came close, every ounce of resolve in me melted when he rested his cold, soft, and demanding lips on mine. He towered over me so much, I had to stand on my tiptoes in a bid to get closer to him. And even when he held my hands back in a dominating manner, I loved it. But he would never stay with me, would he? Despite the electrifying sizzling we shared during the kissing and touching, he still left, without caring to explain. What would a prisoner and a mistress like me expect anyway? And why do I keep letting him have his way when he is incapable of treating me like a normal being? Here I was again, I thought heavy-heartedly, thinking those thoughts I promised myself not to think about, at least not tonight. He could go ahead and do whatever he wishes with me. I just hope Carla wouldn't get into trouble now that he has recognized me. After all, she did all these for my sake. I would have to tell Carla the truth about me at some point. There was absolutely no point hiding things from her anymore. I stood in the garden alone, biting my lips and relinquishing on the kiss. It felt so good, but I have to look for a way to control my desires around him. I have never been a weakling all my life, and I'm not about to be one now. If he wouldn't accept me as I am, what the point of being here with him? I looked around, wondering where I could find Carla. It was about time we left, and I wouldn't want the stuck-up stewardess to find out about us leaving the room. Somehow, I was more scared of her than the Alpha. A loud howling sound erupted from every corner of the castle, and then I ran out of the garden towards the ball, only to see people shape-shifting and turning into huge, giant wolves. They all started advancing towards a large clearing outside the ballroom. "Emma!" I heard Carla's excited voice behind me. I turned to see her grinning widely. "Where have you been?" "I've been searching everywhere for you. And how did you leave the ballroom all by yourself?" she asked, half worried, half excitedly. I looked around, and since nobody was watching us, I started to sign, "I'll tell you everything when we get back to the room." Meanwhile, how was your time with Mint? And what are these howling sounds? I just wanted to ask away all the questions in my head at once. I also wanted to tell her we have been caught, but that would be after telling her the truth about me. I pray the Alpha wouldn't tell on Carla. After all, he was the only person who could recognize me here. Carla held my hand and wanted to start dragging me back to the room, but somehow I wouldn't budge. I guess deep down, I was waiting for my mate, even though I wouldn't want to admit it myself. "We have to go now, Emma," she said, all the excitement replaced with frustration. It's midnight and the shifting ritual has begun. The full moon is at its peak. That's for the howling. I'll tell you all about my time with Mint when we get inside. We can't afford to let Stewardess Roth know we are not in that room. Something was going on in me as Carla spoke. Her lips were moving, but I couldn't hear much anymore because her voice was becoming distant. And then the strong smell of my mate wafted into my nostrils. This wasn't the normal kind of smell I've been perceiving from him. It was so strong this time that it felt as though all my other senses were shutting down. I turned from Carla's confused and alarmed face to see a huge black wolf standing in the middle of the clearing under the cloudless sky and big blue moon. Every other werewolves around stood few meters away from him with their heads bowed. There were still some well-dressed people in their human form, however. They stood closer to the entrance of the ballroom. An unexplainable magnetic force drew my eyes back to the big black wolf. He was gazing right at me from the distance, causing Ashley to jump around my head in the most erratic way ever. "Black," she whispered, and then I felt a surge of energy course through me. Carla came to stand before me, blocking my view from the big black wolf. She looked terrified, mouthing my name, but I couldn't hear a single thing. Suddenly, my body started acting funny. My back hunched on its own, my both hands stretched out, and I could feel my fingers stretching out into claws. The bones of my back started to snap noisily as I fell on all fours. All my clothes ripped out of my body as it seemed as though my frame was growing larger. And then my mind went numb for some minutes. It was the most excruciating pain I had ever felt in my life. "We shouldn't shapeshift here, Ashley. It'll get us in trouble," I yelled at my wolf in my head. I had lost control. Ashley was the one controlling us now, and she ignored my plea completely. It was happening so fast, and Ashley, who seemed so hyped, knocked Carla out of her way and started running towards the black wolf in the clearing, their both gazes locked. But I guess we both didn't see it coming when from nowhere, a strange bullet hit us hard in the stomach, sending us sprawling onto the carpet grass. I could hear Ashley's howl of agony and the sound of commotion around us. A scalding sensation shot through my insides. My senses became more and more disoriented as the pain drowned every sound and feeling. The glowing light of the moon continued to wane above me before the world went completely dark. Alpha Zwijk. After my exchange with my little mate, I went back to the ballroom to announce the beginning of the shifting ceremony. Here in the werewolf realm, we believe we all evolved from the moon goddess Diana, and the moon as her strong source of connection to us. The moon protects us, the moon sends us rain and sources of living. So after completing its cycle for about 28 times in a year, that is 12 moons, the next full moon that comes out is what we call the blue moon, and it is the 13th moon. When the clock hits midnight, that is a new day. We stand under the full moon, shift into our wolf form, and howl into the sky in unison as reverence to the moon goddess for sending the full moon to us once again. The shifting was compulsory for every present werewolf at the ceremony when my father was the alpha, but I realized later that some people don't feel the connection with the moon during that period. However, most alphas or betas or gammas or even regular wolves feel the connection deep down in their bones at midnight, so shapeshifting occurs even without their permission. That's one of the few times our wolves can come out and take most of the control with or without our consent. So when the clock struck after my announcement, most of us came out of the ballroom and shapeshifted. However, some other wolves, especially most she-wolves, didn't shapeshift. Not that they couldn't, but shifting can be painful for people who are not used to it. And some, like my so-called chosen mate, simply don't shift because she doesn't want to ruin her nails, and mostly because she doesn't feel much connection to the moon. Also, some of the securities are rankless wolves, so they cannot shift. Nevertheless, this year's shifting ceremony was going to be different, and I didn't see it coming. After most of us shapeshifted, we gathered under the moon in a clearing we called the Cycle and began howling into the sky. While we were howling, Black, my wolf, suddenly sensed the wolf of our mate. He looked at the angle the feeling was coming from, only to see the half-blood staring at him from a distance. She was really waiting for me, I thought with satisfaction. As their gazes locked, a female came and stood in front of our mate, blocking our view of her. I tried to get my mind off her and concentrate on the job at hand because at this point, the energy from the moon was getting stronger and stronger. So was the feeling of my mate's wolf. Strangely, she didn't give off only the wolf vibe. There was an unfamiliar aura that came with feeling. Black couldn't help it, so he looked again, only for us to see that our half-blood mate has been replaced by a medium-sized golden wolf. Black gazed at her, stupefied and stunned. She was the most beautiful wolf he had ever seen. Her fur was so golden, it radiated under the moonlight, giving it the color of the sun's rays. Her hazel eyes shimmered with pure affection, focused on us, and before I could stop her, she started running towards us. Black felt warm all over, but I was scared for her. I noticed a longer and sharper canine at the side of her fangs. It was longer and sharper than that of even an alpha lichen. She had unknowingly drew attention to herself. It dawned on me that she also felt a connection with the moon. That was why she could shift that way, even if she wasn't a complete werewolf breed. I tried to mind-link her to stop, but I couldn't get access into her mind. And worse still, she was approaching the clearing in top speed. Now everyone's attention was on her, and I heard growls and screams from the crowd. "That is not a werewolf, it is a beast!" A voice rang out from the entrance of the ballroom. "It is going to attack the alpha, shoot it down now!" It was happening so fast, before I could shapeshift and command them to hold fire, one of the security men corked his rifle and fired. Without warning, the bullet hit straight into her stomach, throwing her off the ground. I wasn't fast enough to stop the bullet from touching her. Burning rage erupted from my insides. Black growled in terror, causing everyone to cower in fear. I shapeshifted back to my human form and rushed to where she laid, holding her in my arms. She whimpered weakly as her eyes grew dim, and all she grew weaker. Seeing her this way caused an excruciating ache in my heart. I could feel her pain deep within me, and even as she shapeshifted back to her human form in my arms, my chest burned with agony. Blood gushed out from her stomach, so pressed my both hands on the wound, putting pressure to reduce bleeding. I couldn't imagine how she was feeling right now. "Alpha, please get away from her. She could be dangerous." The same voice spoke up again, only for me to turn and see Argo standing close to the security guard holding a gun. The same gun responsible for all this. Fury swelled in me. I wanted to snap off the neck of Argo and the dumb guard. How dare they shoot at my mate? Another rumbling from my chest, louder than normal as Black was boiling with wrath. "We have to save our mate!" He growled at me, and I could see the raw pain in his eyes. I mind-linked Mint, my gamma, immediately, and he dashed to where I was as though he had been waiting for my call. I asked him to take my mate out of here to my room and get the royal physician to attend to her immediately. "Mate, sure no one is following you, Mint," I told him in our mind link as he hauled my dying mate into his arms and walked towards the back wing of the castle. He knew what to do. Taking through the front was going to bring attention to them and cause more questions. Also, as the Gamma, he had more connection with my mate than my Beta did, so he was the best person to protect her. After making sure that Mint had disappeared from view with her, I stood up and walked up to the security guard who shot Emma, and before he could say any word of apology, I knocked him off the railing to at least break a bone or two. As for Argo, his punishment would be severe, but definitely not now. Curtis was already behind me, begging me through MindLink not to do any harm to Alpha Argo, that it would cause an uproar as everyone was watching. He knew how furious I was and what I was capable of doing to that slimy and cunning wolf. "Apologies, Your Grace." Argo bowed, taking few steps backward as I advanced towards him. I noticed she is not a complete werewolf, but also sensed that she had the blood of a vampire. He said loud enough for everyone to hear, and the crowd went hushed. It was actually true what the Borders guards said about the creature they found. I thought she was about to hurt you, Alpha, so I commanded the guard to shoot her down. Because, as we all know, a vampire or a half-breed for that matter would always be a threat to our realm. He finished without raising his head up. He knew what he was doing. He had slowly planted fear and doubt into the minds of every wolf present today, and somehow it was not far-fetched to say he must have known the half-blood was my mate. But the question was, how did he know this much about something we kept a top secret? One thing was for sure, Argo was extremely smart, and it was possible he put the puzzles together on his own. However, he couldn't have done that without any help. And I would definitely find out who that help came from. I just hoped Emma was okay. If not, I would kill Argo with my bare hands. Nevertheless, this meant I would have to hide my mate all the more. My realm would never accept her as their Luna Queen. And that only meant one thing. I had to choose between letting her go and abandoning my throne. Two tough choices, but one must be made. Emma. My eyes fluttered open, but I couldn't see clearly, so I blinked rapidly till everything before me was clear enough. I wasn't under the full moon anymore. I was in a red room, on the bed. It looked like the room I stumbled into the other time while trying to escape. My mate's secret room. I wondered for a moment how I got here, before the memory of what happened before dawned on me. I winced, remembering being shot and the pain I felt back then. Fortunately, I wasn't feeling any of that pain anymore. People die when they are shot, right? Wait a sec, was this the afterlife? So maybe I wasn't feeling pains any longer because I was dead already? Oh my God, what have I done? I can't die and leave my dad all alone in this world. I thought in cringing at myself, and our afterlife meant to be this red? Am I in hell? Are you okay? The deep voice of my mate dragged me out of my delusions. Emma, how are you feeling? Phew, I let out a mental sigh of relief. I wasn't dead after all. I turned to see my mate sitting beside my bed. Why didn't I notice his presence before? Or maybe my senses were still coming back to life, I guessed, frowning weakly at him. Where was he when my spontaneous wolf got shot anyway? She shapeshifted because of him, but was almost killed, and he couldn't do anything to stop it? What if? Whatever you are thinking is not the truth, Emma. His tone sounded so calm and soothing, it rubbed off my thoughts. I was trying to tell Ashley not to come out like that, but there was no way to communicate. How did he know Ashley's name? And why was he suddenly being this kind to me? I wondered, taken aback. He should go ahead and be mean as usual. I've gotten used to that. I tried to get up, but he rushed to help me up. His touch sent tingles down my spine, but it didn't stop me from snatching my hand away from his. I felt stronger now. I didn't need his help, and I just want to go back home to my dad, wake up on my bed, and realize that all of this was simply a nightmare. Emma, his voice sounded strained and tired as he tried to hold me again, and this time I let him. Today was actually the first day I have ever heard him call my name, not with his deep, arrogant, and possessive growl, but with a gentle voice. He helped me up, so I sat on the bed facing him as his eyes gazed searchingly into mine. His hair looked unruly and unbrushed, with stubble on his cheek, giving him a vulnerable and bad boy look at the same time. He looked so breathtaking despite how casual as he was right now. Lord, how in the name of the goddess can I hate this man? I looked away so he wouldn't see how badly I was blushing. The room didn't smell dusty or damp like the other day. The windows were open and the room seemed brighter. I must have stayed here for more than a day, owing to how comfortable my body felt in here. Geez, Carla. What about Carla? I have so much questions to ask, but my notepad wasn't here, obviously, which means I had to make him understand sign language by all means. I moved back from him a bit, still confused as to why he kept staring intently at me like that. I raised my hands up and began to sign in a slow and descriptive manner while using my lips to mouth the words to make it easier for him to understand. What about Carla? My hands and lips asked. You didn't tell on her, did you? Where is she now? Signing and lip speaking was harder than I thought, especially to someone who has no basic understanding of sign language. He frowned deeply at first, and then, to my surprise, smiled at me with a look of understanding. You should worry about yourself first, little mate. I was expecting you to ask who hit you and stuff like that, he chuckled. Carla was a bit shaken after you knocked her down, but she's fine now. However, she will be punished for bringing you out of the room. You might have died. He tensed at the last words and his face turned serious again. I'm sorry you were shot that way. He looked away, his lips quivering. I knew he wanted to say more, but was too proud to. His eyes were saying more words than his mouth, and I could see that he was scared that I could have died. But wasn't that what he wanted? I couldn't believe he cared for me that much. I am fine and strong now? I signed and mouthed, "Please don't let them punish Carla. It's not her fault. It's mine." He got up as though he didn't want to hear about it anymore, then looked down on me as I sat on the bed, causing me to wonder how he managed to understand my language. I was putting on an extra-large black shirt with nothing else underneath. It looked like it belonged to him. I suddenly felt bare before him. "You have healed completely because of what you are." He paused and leaned down. "And as for your personal maid, she has to be punished, and you also will be punished, just a little bit differently." There was a mischievous glitter in his violet eyes as he said the last words. I raised an eyebrow tentatively, biting my lips and blushing at the same time. It wasn't what I was thinking, right? I thought, casting my eyes down on the white sheets I was sitting on. My body craved his, just like the other night we kissed under the full moon. He gave me a knowing sneer, showing me he understood my reactions. "I don't make love, little mate," he uttered with confidence. "I fuck, roughly, and I doubt if you can handle that," he said hoarsely. I could feel my hormones dancing at his words, causing me to get up impulsively and stand before him. I knew I was daring him, but I couldn't help it. I wanted to know what it was like. I have never made love before, talk more of having a rough sex, but I wanted him in every way possible. I couldn't think straight. I wanted him right now. It was as though he could hear my thoughts as he crushed me to him, pressing me possessively against his hard body, gazing down at me with misty eyes. He was so tall, I was barely reaching his chest. "I won't go easy on you, mate," he breathed. I nodded, gazing up steadily at him. I wasn't cowering anymore. He was my mate, so I refused to be sacred of him. Once I start, I won't stop, and you might get hurt. I nodded again, chewing on my lips, waiting for him to decide. I knew he would never deliberately hurt me, but what was pleasure without pain? He looked like he was trying so hard to hold back, but his control was slipping away. He exhaled deeply in surrender as he leaned down, burying his face in crook of my neck and inhaling a lung full of my smell. "Mine," he whispered huskily as he pressed wet and scorching kisses all over my neck, drawing the soul out of my body. My heart did a flip-flop at the sound of his voice. I melted against him, reassured that we were brought together by more than a physical flame that could die as quickly as it flared. He brought his lips back to my mouth, claiming me with an insatiable hunger. Holding me firmly to him, I gasped, trembling at his touch. My mind was about to explode. I was feeling so many things, and it was as though his hands were on every part of my body. His hand moved up to my back, beginning an unhurried exploration that made me shiver in the most delicious manner. He peeled his lips from mine, breathing heavily. He took 2 steps back, then held the collar of the shirt I was wearing and tore it apart. I stood awkwardly, exposed before him. It was the first time I was going naked in front of a man, and despite how aroused I was, I felt shy as well under the close scrutiny of his eyes. He was ravishing my whole body from head to toe. He came closer, peeling of the clothes from me in calculated movement, with his eyes still glued on my body. "You have no idea how stunning you look, little mate," he muttered gutturally against my ears, causing an electric feeling to zap through my abdomen. "Still, I have to punish you." Anticipation sent my hormones running wildly over my inside, causing a wet feeling in my core. My mate hauled me into his arms and placed me gently on the bed. He climbed back down from the bed and sauntered to one of the tall drawers sitting at the corner of the room. He opened it and brought out something like belts and ropes. As he came closer to me with the items on his hands, I saw the leather belts had buckles in them, and the rope was like a wire cord. What was he trying to do with that? I wondered, feeling my breath getting more labored as I lie naked on the bed. It looked like something I have read some time ago. Hold up, was this the submission he was talking about? My mate is actually into BDSM? My eyes widened in shock. I get it now. He said he fucked roughly and could hurt me. That was it. He was actually asking for my consent right then, but I didn't even understand. I didn't even know what I was getting into. Stupid me.